Hey, everybody, welcome to tonight's late night happy hour. Brian Kamenetzky and Andy Kamenetzky excited tonight to dive back into the NFL. Joined tonight by Ted Nguyen from the Athletic. Does really cool stuff. Just really, really cool things. The things that have taught me a lot about football, taught Andy a lot about football, and now we get to talk to
Well,
him.
not me. I pretty much knew it all. But I mean, I'm glad that you're learning. It's nice that you can keep up with whatever I'm going to ask Ted.
It's taught him how much he already knows about football, which is just nice.
How you doing, reinforcing man? What he knows already.
Exactly.
I'm doing well. Thank you for the intro, and thank you for pronouncing my name right. You didn't even ask, and you know how to pronounce it. Not a lot of people know how to.
I mean, Andy and I are somewhat sensitive, I think, to pronunciation questions because we do get a few things that get butchered. Mm-hmm. It occurred to me like maybe there's an alternate pronunciation, but I thought it was Nguyen, and I was just going to run with that.
I think Ted is having some difficulty hearing us all of a sudden. So we'll hope to work through that.
Are you hearing hello, Andy? Because I was having trouble before.
Are you? I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you right now.
Muted, and I just have to. You have to let's see. He has to unmute himself. There we go. Can you hear us, Ted?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah. No worries. No worries. Yeah, I mean, we try to do the research on it, particularly because I in particular, as much as I'm sensitive to it, I'm capable of bricking any word pronunciation or any name pronunciation. I often write out a lot of stuff phonetically if need be, but having grown up with a last name that also gets butchered a lot, even though it's actually quite phonetic.
It's phonetic.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is actually the name when you think about it. Kamenetzky is exactly how it's spelled, but people just aren't used to it, and therefore you get a bunch of different variations. So we are trying to learn, and we wanted to get it right for you.
Appreciate that. I usually tell people since I started just covering the Raiders, it's just win, baby. This is a real easy way to pronounce it.
If that takes off, you got to get that on a shirt.
They do have that shirt, actually. I see it on my, how Instagram says targeted ads. They've been targeting me with that shirt, and it's been tempting. But every time I see a targeted ad, I actually get mad, and I purposely don't click it, even though I get tempted.
I had the craziest Target ad experience, which really made me realize, holy shit, they hear everything. We are living, now in the age of the internet, search engines, data gathering, we are in Skynet and they hear everything. I saw an article on Twitter that Brad Pitt's jacket that his character wore in Fight Club was getting auctioned off for I don't remember what, but I retweeted that with the comment that Brad Pitt's jacket in Fight Club is on the Mount Rushmore of jackets. And because it's an amazing jacket. I remember when
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah, that maroonish rusted color. It's amazing. I remember when I saw the movie, I thought it was awesome. And I retweeted that about being on the Mount Rushmore jackets, and somebody asked me what else would be there, and I was like, well, off the top of my head, I said Nicolas Cage's snakeskin jacket in Wild at Heart, and a couple others, and then I said Denzel Washington's leather jacket in Training Day. It was just a badass jacket. The next day, there was a targeted ad for me with not just Denzel Washington's leather jacket in Training Day, the style. It literally was a photo of Denzel Washington in Training Day. The other jackets in this targeted ad were just listed what they are. Except Denzel's, they showed a photo of Denzel, a stock photo from the movie, and it says Denzel Washington Training Day. And I was like, oh my God, they're creepy. Hearing everything.
That is very creepy.
That's nuts. Yeah, when I see a targeted ad, I feel like my privacy is being infringed upon. So even though I get tempted to maybe click it, I purposely make it a point not to do it.
Yeah, I'm always torn between the creepiness and the convenience. On one hand, it's totally invasive. On the other hand, I'm like, damn, they found something I really want.
Yeah, they know me. The funny thing is, the things that I actually click are all for my dog. When I or something for cleaning dog hair or like a cool toy for a dog, then I'm like, all right, I'll get it for my dog. But if it's for me, I just like can't do it.
I'm looking this up, Ted. There is an extraordinary amount of Nguyen-related clothing that you can buy. Like you can get this for onesies. I am looking currently at a Just Win Baby T-shirt. There's a one for little babies. Don't start with me, you won't win. That's a baby bodysuit. I had no idea that this was an entire culture of clothing attached to your last name, and I'm assuming it's all about you.
Yeah, I mean, it was just created just for me. They knew it was coming. Oh, by the way, I think a great movie jacket is.
Oh, I'm glad you're willing to go here. Let's do this. Let's have this conversation.
It's Ryan Gosling in Blade Runner 2049. That trench coat.
Oh yes, yeah. For that with the collar, it's fantastic. For that matter, Ryan Gosling's jacket in Drive is fantastic jacket.
The Scorpion one, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, that one's great. And while he's not wearing the jacket, he's the co-star of the movie. Russell Crowe's jacket in The Nice Guys, that light blue leather jacket, which I've never seen before. Like, I've never seen that color for a jacket, is fantastic. People are loving you, Ted, so far. They are enjoying you on the show so far, that you're going with us on the jacket Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, so
people are enjoying
when Andy brought this up, because of course I was in the middle of trying to get prepped for whatever show we were doing that night, and he sends this thing to me, and I of course now have to stop what I'm doing, and I forget who our guest was that night, but I'm sure they got screwed because I didn't do any prep for the show and had to go into this. It raises all sorts of questions. First of all, I think the obvious answer is Indiana Jones. It's Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones. Like, that is one of the most iconic jackets or pieces of clothing in anything. And also, he wins for also being in the hat Mount Rushmore of movies. He's the only character that gets to be on both. I think we can agree on that. It raises the question, does Harrison Ford get to be on it twice because of Han Solo? To which Andy replied, wait, is a vest a jacket? And that's a good question. Is a vest a jacket without sleeves, or is a vest its own thing?
I don't think a vest is a jacket. Like,
that's what I feel.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, like, what? I don't think I've ever owned a vest. Like, what is the point of a vest? Because it doesn't really keep you warm. I mean, I guess it gives you extra pockets. Oh, the core warm.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever even worn a vest, except for maybe like a tuxedo vest. But as far as like a jacket vest, I don't think I've ever worn one. Just because like I just don't see because like I want to keep my arm if I have to, be in the cold.
They're good for when it's cool but not cold. Like when it's too much for just a t-shirt, but you don't want to throw on an actual jacket, or maybe even like a sweatshirt is a little too much. Like, like a ski vest can work for something like that. But generally speaking, I have found no use for a vest either. Like I don't like them even when suits. They're not my jam.
I've grown to enjoy a good vest. I can be honest with you. A puffer vest. I do like the pocket factor. I like the fact, like you go like skiing or snowboarding on a reasonably warm day. They're pretty good for that. Like I think you guys are underselling the value of the vest.
Maybe. There's a lot of leather vests at Raider games, so maybe I did get one of those.
The other question I think that was really important is, does Eddie Murphy's jacket in Raw count? Like, it's a movie, and it's one of the most iconic pieces of clothing, I think. I mean, everybody knows what that was, very period. But it's all, it's a concert film. Like, does that count?
I think it gets its own category.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's almost like a leather sweatsuit. Like it's borderline not a jacket, because it wouldn't work if it even works.
It is a leather tracksuit. You're exactly right, but it's
I mean, like, it's kind of like the leather version of Al Davis, since we've been talking about the Raiders. Like, it's a very specific thing. And I think it's fair to say, while it may be iconic, it has aged exceptionally poorly.
I didn't say I would wear it today. I'm just saying everybody knows what it is if you've seen it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I mean, Al Davis also made like what's that thing called where it's a strap behind, that holds your glasses on?
Croakers. Isn't that what they're called? Croakies.
Yeah. Croakies. Okay. Al Davis made those iconic.
Yes, he did. I've forgotten about that, but you're right. He did used to bust out the croakies. Croakers is much more morbid.
Yeah, it is. Well, look, I mean, you don't want your glasses falling off.
Yeah. I don't need glasses, but I need to get blue light glasses because I'm staring at the computer all day. I might have to get croakies to go with them and honor Al Davis too. And it's convenient.
The amount of film that you go through, that is a lot of time in front of the blue. Yeah, and then I'm writing too, so it's like you watch the film, you got to do the video editing, and then that's the easy part. Then you have to write on top of that. So it's just like during football season, it's just like 4 a.m. nights every till Thursday. Then I get to cool off a little bit.
Well, you really get to realize just like how these coaches during the season, they're just glazed over. I mean, that's all they do is just stare at screens, stare at the game as it's played, and sleep if they get the opportunity to sleep. Like that's it. They don't do anything else for an entire season. Is that culture changing at all, Ted? Because the football culture used to be one of, show up in the facility at 5 a.m. and you don't leave until 3 a.m. and you sleep on your own. You don't see your family and I always felt like a lot of that was performative. And it's changing in basketball. You see many more basketball coaches sending their staff home. Just be like, go home. It's like you've done enough work, go home. Is it changing at all in football? I think with like PFF and all these stat tracking services they have available to them now, that they have to do less of the dirty work as far as like charting every little piece of the play, but they still have to confirm it, and then they still have to add their own notes to every single play as well. So there's still a ton of work to do. And I mean, if it depends on what organization you're from. Like if you're with Bruce Arians, he's going to send you home because he wants you to have time with your family because he believes that's important. But if you're on Bill Belichick's staff, he doesn't care. You got to stay and get your work done. You got to chart every game, get every little tendency. So it just depends on what staff you're on. And at the same time, if you're an entry level coach, you're competing against these other guys, and you don't want to be the guy that doesn't do the work and doesn't get noticed. Yeah, the football culture has always been odd that way. To me, just it just that's how it's always been. There's so much that we want. You've done a ton of stuff that we really want to get into tonight. And do you want to start with the Rams, or you want to start with Herbert? Because I wanted to get
Herbert is on my fantasy team, and the Rams are the Rams. So I mean, I know it's important to me, but what did you want to start with?
I was going to say let's start with Herbert because it's the most recent piece that you've written. It's up on The Athletic right now, and it's interesting. One of the things you talked about was heading into the season. Herbert had pretty mixed reviews in terms of confidence around the league, in terms of his potential, where he'd possibly end up getting drafted, the type of quarterback that he projected as. And these last few weeks, as you've noted, he's not only playing well for a rookie, he's playing like a top 10 quarterback. And one of the things that you've been concerned about was a lack of aggression heading into the NFL. And now he's, as you put it, he's swinging, attacking like a home run hitter. He's attacking defenses with deep shots. What is it that you think has allowed him to gain that type of confidence? And how quickly did you see something change in him? I really wasn't high on Herbert coming into the draft, just because, there were some accuracy issues that I saw in his college film, and he just was not aggressive. Like he did take some deep shots here and there, but other than that, like he checked the ball down a lot. He didn't look like he just had a good plan when he was going through his progressions. And then, all of a sudden he gets to, I first started noticing him obviously on Hard Knocks
But like, you can't really trust Hard Knocks just because, like, they're editing all this stuff. But like, he just looked really smooth. He looked like he was poised. He looked like he was handling all these calls right. Like, you didn't see him fumbling around with calls in a huddle. And I was like, okay, I mean, maybe there is something there, but again, this is Hard Knocks. Maybe they're just editing this stuff. And then he comes into that game in Kansas City, where he wasn't expected to be the starter there. Like, Tyrod Taylor was supposed to be the starter coming into the game, and then he had that freak accident right before the game. And then Herbert comes in, and he just looks like, he's running the offense extremely smooth. Like, he's going to risk some. He's going to throw some risky passes, but I was just really impressed at how poised he was, especially with no practice, against the Kansas City defense, who is actually one of the top defenses in the league. And then he continued that play. And then when he had that big game against the Buccaneers, I was blown away by his performance. And then he leads the Jaguars back from that deficit and wins that game. But I think what really helped him in NFL is he has a good system that he's in. He has a good coach in Pet Hamilton, who's really helping him develop his footwork, his fundamentals, his reads, and then now he has weapons. I mean, when he was at Oregon, his last year, only one of his receivers got drafted, and then he got drafted in the 7th round, and he eventually got cut. So now he's with the Chargers, who have pretty good weapons. He has Keenan Allen, he has Hunter Henry. Guyton runs a 4.3, and you saw some of that speed against Jaguars. So he has a system that makes sense that he could develop in, and he has weapons around him now. And I'm still stunned by the contrast of how unaggressive he was at Oregon and how he's playing now, where anytime he even gets like a chance to throw deep, he's going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, like the throw he made, I think it was last week. I completely lost the ability to keep track of time, but the throw he made to Guyton, the 70-yard touchdown pass.
Yep, that was last week.
Yeah, that was that was a dime, and like that's obviously a great throw. What is the thing though when a rookie quarterback comes in, because Baker Mayfield kind of lit the world on fire early in his career, whatever, and has struggled a little bit more since. What is the thing with quarterbacks where you can tell whether or not it's early, people don't have enough tape, they haven't learned tendencies, whatever it might be, versus no, really the guy is this good?
Well, some encouraging signs is when you look at his stats when you look at a quarterback's performance under pressure, that's actually a very unstable metric, because your play under pressure could vary from year to year, even for the really good quarterbacks. So you don't want to look at that too much or put too much stock in those stats. You want to look at how he performs in a clean pocket. That is a stat that carries on from year to year, and you could be very consistent in that. And his passer rating is 13th in the league, I believe, when he has a clean pocket. So that's pretty good for a rookie. He's 3rd under pressure, which is a good sign. But again, you don't want to put too much stock into that. And also, he's not just getting protected by a bunch of play action. Like, there's a lot of good coaches out there right now that are protecting their quarterback and scheming up throws with them with play action. He's actually a little worse throwing play action than he is in a normal straight drop back game. A lot of his production is coming from a straight drop back game, and that's hard to do as a rookie, and he's doing it right now. So those are all good signs that he might be the real deal.
What I always think is really interesting in any sport is with rookies or young, inexperienced players that start breaking out, is when opposing coaches start making adjustments to them, and then they have to make adjustments to the adjustments. What do you think that opposing coaches are going to start looking to do with Herbert now that he's becoming more of a known commodity to try to trip him up?
I think they'll do what they did with Josh Allen. They're going to try to do a little more pre-snap disguising. They're going to sit back in zones and see if he could be patient and see if he could throw the ball in between zones and throw the ball with anticipation. I think they're going to try to take away deep passes, and they're going to try to add a little confusion just to make him a little slower on the pre-snap process and see if he can handle that.
What is the deal with Tyrod Taylor that he's able to usher in rookie quarterbacks in this way? And is he forever like, is he just like basically cursed? Because the Baker Mayfield thing is like, oh, that's a bummer. Like he seemed like he might, and then all of a sudden with he goes to Buffalo, and then they stab him through his lung to get him out of the starting lineup. Is he just destined to never be a starting quarterback in this league?
That was. I think the Chargers were really intent on going to try to sit Herbert for at least until they had a bye week, and yeah, that was just so unfortunate for Taylor. And you could tell they didn't want to hand the job to Herbert just yet, even though he was playing phenomenal, because it's just such an unfortunate situation to lose your job like that because of the team doctor mistake. So yeah, it just sucks for Taylor. I mean, he's such a good guy, and I'm sure he does a really good job of mentoring these young guys too. You saw a little bit with Hard Knocks when he was helping out Mayfield. They had their little quarterback RV or whatever it was. So I think part of it is he's helping to mentor these guys and try to usher them in and doing the best he can as a veteran quarterback. But yeah, I mean, if you're a team with a young quarterback, you might want to sign Tyrod Taylor. He's 2 for 2.
Well, I know if you're the team with the young quarterback and the young quarterback wants to get on the field, that guy at least wants you to sign Tyrod Taylor, because then he knows he'll get a chance to play. I saw this and I thought this was one of the most Chargery things you could possibly find. At The Athletic, they have a breakdown of projected records and all these things in the playoffs, and a bunch of metrics to just kind of rank teams in different ways and stuff. And the Rams have the second highest EPR, which is, I guess, sort of a. Can you explain EPR real quick?
Is it EPA?
It says EPR.
Expected points. I know EPA is expected points average.
It's basically that. That's what it is. It says.
I'm trying to remember what EPR rating is.
Expected power rating.
Expected power rating. Okay, that's the Athletics' own
internal
metric that Ethan Douglas, who's our analytics guy, and I think Shield helped him kind of develop that. I'm not 100%. I saw that and I didn't really dive into it. So you don't have to know it, but like the Rams are way up there, and the Chargers, and I thought this was like the Chargeriest thing ever, are the highest ranked team expected to have a losing record. Like that feels very much like the Chargers. Like they're not bad by any stretch of the imagination, and they actually are expected to have they're ranked higher than a few teams that are expected to have a better record based on this metric, but they're still supposed to finish 7-9. Is this just be another one of those types of seasons for the Chargers where just enough goes wrong that a pretty decent football team doesn't do anything? I think they've been kind of Chargery in the beginning of the season, and I kind of describe them as how the Seattle Seahawks, they always end up in like a last minute nail biting game, but they somehow come through at the end. The Chargers are the Seahawks, but they don't come through at the end.
No, they're Sisyphus. They're just always pushing that rock up the hill, and that rock at the end of the day always falls back down. And they're just with it. I mean, for a while it seemed like it was a Phillip Rivers thing, and now it's just pretty clear. I mean, I guess really, if you know the history of the Chargers, this has been going on a while. Yep. But in terms of recent history, I think it felt like Phillip Rivers was cursed. And it just seems like, for whatever reason, something in that franchise just does not allow them to get over a hump consistently.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, they play bad teams, and then it'll be a nail biter, and they lose at the end. They play really good teams, it'll be a nail biter, and they lose in the end. So it's a mystery. I mean, a lot of it has to do with how banged up they are year to year. Like every single year, like their stars just injured out for the year before the season starts.
Clearly they have a problem with the team medical staff. They've got a doctor who stabs people through their lungs.
Yeah,
I mean, that's better.
Rough. Yeah, and I think Herbert. I mean, if Herbert's the real deal, they'll probably get through this. Get through, maybe end this curse or whatever it is. But their offensive line is really bad. So I'm a little concerned for Herbert's health too, because they have one of the worst pass blocking offensive lines. And obviously Herbert, he wants to attack deep, but it takes some time to attack deep, and he's going to take some hits. So that they have to find a way to protect him moving forward.
Okay, Brian had mentioned we did want to get to the Rams, and they're 5-2 right now. Their next 5 games are against a better than at least I expected Miami team with Tua about to get that start. Then Seattle, Tampa, second time against the Niners, and Arizona. It's a pretty tough slate. They've only beaten one team above 500, the Bears, and while it was a convincing win, I am not convinced the Bears are a good team.
The Bears are not good.
What are some of your biggest impressions of the Rams so far?
I think Sean McVay has done a good job of kind of evolving his offense. I thought last year after they lost that Super Bowl, every team kind of had a blueprint to stop the Rams. They want everybody's running that 6-1 tilt front that Bill Belichick ran against them, and they had a lot of trouble with it last year. I mean, everybody was copying that blueprint, and part of it was their offensive line wasn't very good. And this year, watching their offense, they do have a lot more answers against that 6-1, and it's working. Their offensive line is better. Jared Goff is playing well, but like you said, they haven't really beaten anybody that is good. So I'm curious to see how they play against some of these better teams. I think their defense is legitimate. I don't think they're a top 5 defense, but I think they're a top 10 defense. I think their new defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley, is really good, really intelligent guy, and he's doing a good job there. And they're doing a bunch of interesting things with Jalen Ramsey. They're moving him into the nickel, so he's making an impact that way. But I mean, I think this is a very top-heavy roster, especially on defense. They're relying a lot on Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey to make plays. So they have some young players, and they need some of those young guys to step up, because I don't think it's sustainable to have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey carry so much of the load.
You guys break down. You wrote a feature with Jordan Rodriguez, who we love having on the show.
She's great.
We learn so much about football. We'll tweet this out. It's a great breakdown of what the Rams are doing defensively. I'll be honest.
I was going to say, between what you've taught Brian and what Jordan's taught Brian, he didn't even have to watch. Like, he doesn't have to know anything.
First of all, I thought football was round up until this season, but it turns out it's not. It's shaped differently. But like, you guys have Brandon Staley's defense broken down in ways that are really, really easy to understand and let people know what's going on, particularly with what they're doing with Jalen Ramsey and how you make an interesting comparison with what Sean McVay does offensively. Can you kind of break that down a little bit to give people an idea of what makes Staley's approach unique, particularly in how it relates to Ramsey?
So with Sean McVay's offense, it's based on everything looks the same until it doesn't, right? I mean, everything looks like it's going to be outside zone until Goff pulls the ball back, and all of a sudden they're taking a deep shot, play action throw, or maybe he pulls it back and throws a screen. So it's just based on deception and everything looking the same right at for the first few seconds of snap. And there was an interview maybe a couple of years ago where McVay said Vic Fangio was a guy, defense coordinator he had a lot of trouble with. And one thing that Vic Fangio does is his defense looks exactly the same pre-snap, so it's hard to read. They just kind of stay in this cover 4 shell, and from that cover 4 shell, they can shift into cover 3, cover 1, cover 2, and it just creates a little bit of uncertainty. And what he did was he hired Vic Fangio's linebacker coach to be his defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley, and that's what they're doing now. They're creating uncertainty before the snap, making things look the same. And with Cooper Kupp in the Rams offense, he's inside in the slot. He does a ton of things. He could, he runs those jet motions. Sometimes he even gets a handoff. He's one of the best blocking wide receivers in the league, and he runs all sorts of routes from that slot position. So by being inside, being closer to the ball, he really shows off his versatility. And that's kind of the same concept that they've used with Jalen Ramsey. By moving him closer to the ball, he could blitz. He's part of the run fit. He could guard tight ends like George Kittle. And when they need him to, he could move back outside too. So Just like generally, just moving your best players closer to the ball and allowing them to make a bigger impact that way.
Does that help them? You talked about the roster. Sorry, Andy. You talked about the roster being a little bit top heavy. Is that one way to kind of address that? To sort of, you maximize Aaron Donald up front, you maximize Jalen Ramsey in the back, and that helps paper over any other issues from a depth standpoint that you might have.
Yeah, I mean, you're just moving your best guy closer to the ball and maximize his impact that way. And I'm not saying that the rest of the Rams defense is trash. They have some good players. They have, I think they have some good safeties, some good cornerbacks. But other than Donald and Ramsey, there's just no other real stars on that the defensive side of the ball.
I thought it was really interesting, the quote that you had in that piece about Jalen Ramsey being like LeBron James in this defense, and the idea of being a positionless player. Mm-hmm. I thought was really fascinating. And it's interesting too, because one of the things that your piece talks about as well is like the lack of relative importance with middle linebacker on this team. And middle linebacker is traditionally thought of as, one of, if not the most important position on the defense. It has the most responsibilities. And it jumped out at me, for example, that John Johnson is the signal caller defensively as opposed to a middle linebacker. And just I was curious just the significance of that and what that does for this defense, the idea of de-emphasizing the importance of that middle linebacker.
I think just the way the game has moved towards more passing with with less of an emphasis on the run game. Linebackers just they don't make the impact that they used to. And they have to be good in coverage, obviously, just because they get exposed a lot with these pass catching running backs now. But the debate now is just in between who's more important, the pass rushers or coverage. And, because the game now is to stop to harass the opposing quarterbacks, whether it's through the pass rush or harassing them through just taking away their options. And that second level isn't just, they just don't make the type of impact that they used to, unless you have a really good linebacker, like, an elite linebacker like Luke Kuechly, who retired. But unless you have one of those guys, they just don't make the impact that they used to.
So they're the other thing we're almost amazingly halfway through the season, and you look at the NFC and you compare it to the AFC, and a lot of the sort of the glamour teams right now are in the AFC, and the teams that people are talking about in part because the NFC East is so bad. I think it kind of drags down the entire conference. Some of the Carolina, New Orleans isn't quite playing inspired and all. So a lot of the really the teams that get a lot of shine are in the AFC. Who's better than the Rams in the NFC? Who are the best teams right now in this conference? Whether it's
and how many aren't in the NFC West? Right.
I mean, it's Tampa. How do you put them together? Tampa, Seattle, Green Bay, however you want to arrange them.
Well, first, I think we should pose a new. If your division winner doesn't have at least 7 wins, they have to give up their spot. Come on, you can't have a 6-10 team, and they might have a 6-10 team in the playoffs this year, but it's just like, come on, 6-10 in the playoffs.
Let me look at that. I'll look at the projected standings again from the Athletic. The Cowboys are 5-11. The Giants 4-12. Scrolling up, here's your division winner right here, the 6-9-1 Philadelphia Eagles. Because the football team is 6-10. So there you go, 6-9-1. That tie, that's going to get the Eagles in. I actually think the Eagles are going to finish like 3-3-12 or whatever it is, and they'll get in on the strength of all those ties.
But interestingly enough, the Eagles might actually be a decent team as they're getting healthier. I mean, Carson Wentz is playing a lot better. Also, Jason Peters back at left tackle. If Lane Johnson gets healthy, they have a breakout receiver in Fulgham. I believe that's how you pronounce his name.
Just picked him up on the fantasy team.
Yeah, I got him too. I think we have pretty similar fantasy teams. I had Dak Prescott, who was just tearing things up in the beginning of the season. So that was pretty depressing when he went down. But I picked up Justin Herbert
as well too.
Hey, you know what? I don't want to hear it from any of you people. I'm in 2 leagues. My first round pick in 1 league was Saquon Barkley. I got about an hour and a half of football out of him. And then, I don't realize he's a human being.
And then you had that Pittsburgh game where he just had like 10 negative runs. Too.
Right, exactly. And then my other league, my first round pick is Michael Thomas, who I believe has played 1 game, maybe 2. So
okay, you got it the rough.
Try me a river, people.
But yeah, looking back at the NFC, we're talking about who's better than the Rams. Seattle is a pretty good team, but I think they have some weaknesses too. I actually kind of see. Actually, Russell Wilson's just playing so good that I got to put Seattle over the Rams. The Cardinals are they're an interesting team.
I love the Cardinals. I love the Cardinals.
Their defense is a lot better than people give them credit for, but Kyler Murray hasn't. He's putting up really good numbers, but he hasn't taken the step up as a passer that I thought he would. I think maybe he'll get better as the season goes along. But with the defense playing the way that they are now, they're still a legitimate team. Even though they beat the Seahawks, I have a hard time ranking them over the Rams right now, just because I think they're just really inconsistent from week to week. I would say the Rams are better than the Cardinals right now. The Niners, the NFC West is just so interesting.
I am fascinated. Just like perennially.
Everybody's talking about like the Niners as being, this tire fire. They're 4-3, and everybody's been hurt.
They're the most injured team in the league. Like their injured reserve list is ridiculous, and they just beat the Patriots by double digits.
Like that division has 8 losses between all 4 teams. 3 of the 8 losses came against other NFC West teams. This division is brutal. And in a fair world with the expanded playoffs this year, like they should have at least 3 teams in there. Or at least it feels possible.
All 4 could, it's mathematically possible that all 4 teams can make the playoffs, correct?
I don't know. Can they?
No, but I'm saying there are enough slots. Like they're enough.
Yeah.
In the playoffs,
with the extra slot this year.
Yeah, I don't expect you to be like play out the rest of the schedule. I just mean like there is room for 3 wild card teams. So in theory, 3 of them come from the same division.
Yeah, man, it's hard to say. I think the Niners are better than the Rams. They beat them pretty handedly. And as the Niners get healthier, they're going to be a dangerous team. Kyle Shanahan to me is the best strategist in the NFL. Like what he's doing with Jimmy Garoppolo is just ridiculous. So last week they played the Patriots. The Patriots were 6th in allowing yards on throws behind the line of scrimmage. So they're really good at stopping those screens and those easy passes. The Niners put up 103 yards on them on throws just behind the line of scrimmage, which was the most yards on those type of throws in any NFL games this season. So, Shanahan is just finding ways to make it easy for Jimmy Garoppolo, who's really struggling with dealing with the high ankle sprain right now. I don't know how sustainable it is, but what they're doing with their injuries is pretty amazing. And they don't have a lot of significant injuries. Those guys are going to eventually come back. Like Richard Sherman might be back next week. And when Richard Sherman comes back and he gets paired up with Jason Verrett, who's playing out of this world right now, that defense is going to be really tough to move the ball against.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting to see just how this thing plays out with this division, because it's so difficult. And then again, you look at a team like the Rams, they've had a pretty easy go of it within the division so far. But it's about to get more difficult. You're just going to see them get tested more. You're going to see Goff get tested more. How well McVay can make those type of adjustments. But all of those teams in the division they've got tall orders in front of them, because none of them I think there's not a one of them that is clearly, I think, definitively the best. Like where you look at it and say, okay, there's a gap. Even if all 4 are good, there's a gap.
Right.
Which I just think is going to make it really interesting for the second half of the season.
So is I'm sorry, is the gap then between the NFC West and Tampa Bay? They're the highest ranked team there. And then, I think it was Aaron Schatz at ESPN had a column earlier this week that Tampa Bay is clearly the best team, not just in the NFC, but in football.
Yeah, right now they're the best team. I mean, yeah, just real last point on the NFC. I think there's just going to be really good games. All those division games are going to be excellent, down to the wire type of games. But going back to Tampa Bay,
especially since I'm making it so you can, but especially since every game is essentially a neutral field now, that makes it even more so.
Yeah, and with Tampa Bay, they just have playmakers at every position group. Like their run defense is on a historic pace. Like they might have one of the best run defenses of all time, and they have a really good pass rush. And even without they have a good defensive line, and then you add that with Todd Bowles and his pressure schemes, it's just so hard to block them. They have a couple really good physical corners. I think they could get beat deep if you have the time to let those plays develop, but it's hard to pass block against those guys. And then you have Tom Brady, who's really kind of just figuring out this balance between what he does well and Bruce Arians' offense. They have playmakers. Their wide receiver group is a little beat up right now, but then they have the Antonio Brown coming in. Who knows how that's going to work out. But if he's productive, they're going to take another step. This offense is going to take another step, and they're going to have.
Setting aside the sort of the ethical issues of Antonio Brown, what do they do with him? And at what points? Oh, let's start with that one. Like, what in theory is he going to do for them, given the rest of that receiver core that they have there?
Well, I mean, he's basically going to take the Scotty Miller role, and he's going to be like the supercharged Scotty Miller playing Z. They're going to be able to motion him all over the place. Mike Evans is going to be the X, and you have to give extra attention to Evans when he's lined up by himself, because he's such a good deep threat. And Brown is going to get some. I think they're NFL defenses are going to see what he can do if he's still that explosive receiver that he used to be, and if he is able to take advantage of those one-on-ones he gets on the opposite side of Evans. I don't know how you stop this offense. And then when teams start double covering Antonio Brown, then you have Mike Evans one-on-one by himself, and then when Godwin gets healthy in the slot, there's just too many weapons to stop.
Yeah, I mean, they've barely had Chris Godwin available like this whole year. He keeps having hamstring injuries, or he just broke a finger. Like, I mean, they really have not had the full complement of weapons that you would expect for them. And you already see the signs of just how explosive they can be. I mean, it'll be really interesting to see what Antonio Brown looks like, how he does in that locker room. And, I mean, by all accounts, Brady wanted him badly. Like, I mean, because Bruce Arians, I believe, had said he didn't. I think he lost a 1-1 vote. So we'll see what comes of that. I mean, this is, I think, probably safe to say, legal issues, all that aside, this is Antonio Brown's last opportunity, I think, to make it work in the league. If it doesn't work here, it ain't happening anywhere.
Yeah, and I was pretty amazed at all the reports of teams kind of bidding for his service too. I thought there might have been one or two teams, but it seemed like people wanted Antonio Brown, and it just kind of shows that elite talent is everything in this league. It doesn't matter what you've done. If you're eligible to play and you have elite talent, teams are going to come after you.
Yeah, it's probably time for the NFL to just stop pretending that they care about this. I mean,
like Bruce Arians, I think, was just given an award for his work promoting the roles of women in football,
which he has. I mean, Bruce Arians,
right? I know he's got. He's
a very progressively minded
in Arizona, like all of that. But there is an irony to then going out and signing Antonio Brown. I'm just pointing that out.
Yeah. And even though those allegations haven't been proven, there are things that are, like those text messages he sent.
Yes.
I don't want to get too much into it, but there are things that are definitely true with Antonio Brown, with what he's done, that are pretty disturbing.
So what is the sort of the statute of limitations in the NL for these? Not, I don't mean the potentially, criminal things or whatever, but like in terms of them believing that you have the elite talent. Because it felt to me like it had been longer since Brown was a productive player. And I went back and I looked it up, and it actually isn't that long. He had 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns in over 15 games in 2018. That's not last season, it's the year before. So it wasn't that long ago that Brown was not just a regular productive player, but an extremely, maybe not back in his, 1,900 yards or whatever it was back with Pittsburgh, but still really good. How much, but he's 32 now, I think, or almost, hasn't played a lot of meaningful football lately. How good do you think he actually can still be?
He's a guy that he just works. Part of his reputation, he just works really hard at keeping in shape, running his routes. So I'm sure he's been doing all that stuff while he was waiting to get his suspension lifted. So I think he's still he's still an elite receiver. I mean, if you saw what he did without barely any practice in that one game he had with Tom Brady against Miami. This is still an elite receiver, and I watched him in training camp when he was with the Raiders in Oakland, and I just thought, man, this guy is still that Hall of Fame receiver.
Speaking of the Raiders, they're coming off a loss actually to the Buccaneers on the heels of a huge win over the Chiefs, and it's very the Raiders giveth, the Raiders taketh away, but they're 3-3, and they seem to be moving in a discernible direction, which for this franchise in and of itself is a development. What are you seeing from them, and in particular from Carr this season? Because it feels like he's on pace to have a career year.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Carr I thought he was playing really well at some points last year, and then just the injuries kind of mounted up in offense, and he kind of just went back to being conservative Carr to end the year, which left a sour taste in a lot of fans' mouths. But this year he's coming out. He's being aggressive. He's making plays. He'll never be a great out of structure quarterback. Like, he's not going to go out and run for a ton of yards. He's not going to break a bunch of tackles and make crazy throws like Patrick Mahomes. But he's an extremely intelligent quarterback. Has really good arm talent. He can make a lot of throws from the pocket that other quarterbacks can't. He's in charge of a lot of checks. Like, he's checking into good runs. He's making sure that the offense is in the right play. And I think that's becoming a more rare skill as we move to all this spread stuff. So he definitely has his strengths, and he's playing really well in John Gruden's system. The offense is not the problem with the Raiders. They've moved the ball on everybody. They moved the ball against Tampa Bay pretty well, even with a lack of weapons, because Henry Ruggs has played beat up. Brian Edwards is the other receiver starter who has been injured for a while. Their offensive line's been banged up. I mean, against the Buccaneers, they're missing right tackle Trent Brown. Trent Brown has barely played this season. I think he only played like 4 or 5 snaps maybe. Besides that Kansas City game, he did, and he makes a difference. And the Chiefs, the offensive line didn't even practice all week against the Buccaneers. So the offense has performed pretty well despite some really tough circumstances. But this defense, the Raiders defense, is just it's a mess, and that's why it's hard predicting them as a playoff team, even though they have some quality players and a really good offense. The defense is just ridiculously bad, but they played some tough offenses. So, John Gruden said this week that they're going to make some lineup changes, some schematic changes. I think what they're going to do is they're going to start blitzing and gambling a lot. So we'll see what happens with that. But the defense has to play better for me to think that the Raiders are going to be a legitimate playoff contender.
The other team that I really wanted to get into a little bit was Cam and the Patriots, because I learned this year that I didn't actually hate the Patriots nearly as much as I thought I did. I really just didn't like Tom Brady. And it turns out I didn't really like the Buccaneers as much as I thought I did. I just really don't like Tom Brady. But like Cam looks awful. He got off to a pretty good start. It looked pretty good, but what the hell has happened there? I mean, it's really disappointing because I like him a lot and I wanted this to be a good year for him.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be his fundamentals are breaking down because one thing he's worked really hard on is trying to fix his mechanics, fix his footwork, and it looked good in the beginning of the season, like it did early last season. But he just can't. It doesn't seem. It just seems like every time he's playing well, and some sort of injury happens, and I don't think they announced any sort of injury, but I mean, it just looks like he's playing hurt out there. He's missing reads, and when he's missing throws, he's missing them by a lot, not just a little. And he's not they're not running him as much. They're not using his legs in the read option like they were early in the season. So without the read option and the threat of his legs and him missing a bunch of passes, that offense has been a disaster.
I mean, could it just be as simple as his body can't do this anymore?
I mean, he was playing at such a high level that the first 2 weeks that, what changed from those first 2 weeks,
an extra 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to be snarky, but I mean, it's like when, Brian and I covered the last 3 seasons of Kobe's career post Achilles. And, there would be pockets of games where, or a quarter where Kobe looked like Kobe. Like, he could play 7 minutes in a quarter and look like that guy. And the problem was the other, 20-ish minutes, he just looked like a shell of himself. And you just realize he couldn't do this anymore. And I think what I always remind people a lot of times is, they'll see an older guy and they'll have a really good game and they'll say, no, see, he's still capable of doing that. I'm like, he's capable of doing it in that game
for a quarter, for a quarter, but like a game, but not 5 games, not 10.
It's really, really hard to do this stuff, when you're healthy, much less if you're dealing with stuff.
So this interesting comment from the Nathan Mark, who, as you can tell, is one of our listeners, viewers who is not from America, talking about Cam Newton missing guys by 2 or 3 meters. He's from New Zealand. So
I like the Abbey, by the way, fighting his bride with lightsabers.
Got to start him young.
That's love. But he made the point, and you can tell if you disagree, that he wasn't necessarily throwing the ball all that well at the beginning of the season. Maybe he was, but he was running the ball well. You talked about that read option going away. If teams take that away and make him throw, is that potentially part of the issue here? Is like they're just sort of exposing some of the problems he has passing the ball at this point?
I mean, they definitely weren't passing a ton, but when they did pass, he was at least hitting his targets in stride and making good anticipation throws. And now it's just like, he said, he's missing guys by 2 or 3 meters now. But I think, you make a great point that he maybe could play well in spurts, but just overall, maybe his body is breaking down. I mean, if you look back at his injury history, he has all sorts of injuries, just going back the last 4 or 5 years, which is the reason why there just weren't a ton of teams ready to sign him when he was a free agent.
Yeah, that was one of the really fascinating things I thought about the saga leading up to him eventually getting signed by the Patriots. And of course, the reaction was, Bill Belichick, he outsmarted everybody. And for as much attention as there was about Cam's personality, or, however certain people regard it, and, whether the idea that, for some teams, he was too big of a personality, too big of a presence to bring in for a potential quarterback battle, because it's just, there's going to be so much attention on him. I think people had legit, or there had been talk about just people being nervous to sign him for reasons that had nothing to do with football. And I think we'd sort of forgotten about the idea of, we have not seen him play a full productive season in a while. Like, we just haven't seen it.
Yeah, I think that personality stuff is overblown, because it just seems like everywhere he's been, his teammates have loved him. Like, his Patriot teammates love him. Like, he when he was scoring touchdowns, he was, letting his linemen spike the ball and celebrate and all those things. So yeah, like I don't care how he dresses. Like, do you see that Jeff Garcia rant about how he dressed? Like, come on, man. Like, yeah, like I think the personality stuff is overblown, but it's just the injuries is what's concerning with Cam. And he, especially for a quarterback that needs to use his legs and have that run option be part of his game. If you take that away and have to limit that, then it just takes away a huge dynamic.
He's just so big, and you're right. When he's able to move, and he's still averaging 5 yards a carry this year, and he's got 5 touchdowns, but a lot of that was early, and
it's very front loaded.
Yeah, it's there are certain guys say like I like Cam because of the outfits and the hats and all those things, and I kind of like the idea of him with Bill Belichick because as much as Belichick can be kind of an ass and all of these things. But like there's so many things about him that I admire as a coach that, the idea that, once Tom Brady leaves, Bill Belichick suddenly can't coach anymore. I love the idea of him taking another reclamation project and showing he doesn't give a shit who his players are and what they do or what hats they wear, if they have an ascot or anything like that. And I wanted this to work. Is there a chance that it turns around? Like I really find myself pulling for the Patriots, which is a weird thing. I want this to work.
Oh, trust me, I want it to work too. I mean, I had Cam Newton on my after Dak got hurt. I put Cam on my fantasy team.
I picked up Herbert early, so I'm in good shape.
I picked up Herbert and Cam because I was like, all right, maybe this Herbert thing's a flash in the pan, so I'm going to take Cam just in case. I started Cam against Denver. It was a disaster. And I kept him on my team until just like today. I cut him. I was like, look, I just don't know if this thing's going to work anymore. Did
you take like a full ppage ad out in the paper? Like, thank you, Cam. Like,
yeah,
really
thank you for the one game
conference. We appreciate it. Just a wonderful guy. It's a shame it didn't work out.
I mean, but also the Patriots have no weapons. Like if they had weapons, maybe this thing could work out because they have a really good offensive line still. But I mean, they have no weapons. Julian Edelman just had surgery. So, even if Cam gets back healthy and starts playing better, it's just going to be a struggle because guys aren't getting open.
Has there ever been a more oppositely dressed coach quarterback combo than Bill Belichick and Cam Newton? I mean, like you want to talk about two guys, we're supposed to be working together. There's always supposed to be that great connection between the head coach and the franchise quarterback or the face, whatever you want to call it. Like those two guys could not be on the more polar opposite sides of the scale when it comes to dressing.
Yeah, I mean, we had that picture of Belichick, and he took it to another level this year. He had like holes on it in his sweater. He always had to cut off hoodies, but this was the first time where like he had holes in his sweater. I was like, man,
he looks like a hobo. I mean, he's a stick with a handkerchief on the end.
No, he's like how there are like super wealthy, either celebrities or fashionistas or hipsters or whatever that spend like thousands of dollars to look homeless. That's like Bill Belichick. Yeah. Like I guarantee these sleeves that he's cutting off these hoodies, these are like $500 hoodies.
He's not. I will say though, he's not spending a lot on that outfit.
Well, I
give him credit here for at least being frugal.
So you think these are crappy hoodies that he's cutting the sleeves off?
They could be from the Kanye West collection.
They could be. You never know.
Like the Kanye athletic brand that's going to come out soon or whatever.
Speaking of which, have you decided after a couple weeks of quarantine, just to feel a little bit normal, which island you're going to take your family to, Ted?
No. I was so confused with that because I had no idea that Kim tweeted that, and I just see everybody kind of tweeting. Well, I saw one of my friends tweet it. I was like, wow. I didn't know you were making that much money. You're gonna take your friends out to a private island. But yeah, when I first started seeing that trend go around, I was confused.
Well, she followed it up today with Kanye gave me the most delightful, birthday present of like a hologram of my dead father. And I mean, I don't want to tell her that it's, if that makes you feel, good and, brings back warm Godspeed, but it's a weird thing to tweet. It was a weird tweet.
This quote was great because, most people focused on the, after 2 weeks of multiple health screens and asking everyone to quarantine, I surprised my closest inner circle with a trip to a private island where we could pretend things were normal for just a brief moment in time. And that launched all the different memes. But this quote, I realize is misspelled, actually I take it back. Realize is not misspelled. I'm looking right now at a BBC report of this. They may have changed.
Way to be a jerk.
My apologies to Kim. I realize that for most people, this is something that is so far out of reach right now. So in moments like these, I am humbly reminded of how privileged my life is. By definition, you are not humbly reminded of anything, because if you were truly humbly reminded of it, you wouldn't have posted it in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, there is no way that you post your trip to a private island in the middle of a pandemic humbly. That is impossible to do.
It felt like that tweet missed the mark. being sort of read the room of the moment.
They probably should have focus grouped it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people are struggling right now, but the rich and famous can pretend to be, just pretending to be normal by going to a private island. It just shows how out of touch, these people are.
That is correct. That is quite the oxymoron.
I can't even afford to get myself to a public island, let alone a private.
Yeah, it's true. Like a low rent public island, I can't get there right now.
So Ted Nguyen, you find his stuff at The Athletic. He's just a great football writer. We mentioned the story which we put out on the chat with that he did on Brandon Staley with Jordan Rodriguez. You find his stuff on Twitter at FB_film analysis. What's the FB part? Football film analysis.
Football. Yeah, my friends make fun of me and they call me the Facebook guy because they
it got halfway out of my mouth before I realized no, it's probably just football.
Yeah.
But then I had to finish the question. So that's where you find it. The other story that we mentioned, which we'll tweet out as well, about Justin Herbert and why he's been so effective. Dude, this was fun. We've communicated a little bit over email and stuff, but never have had a chance to meet. So this is really cool. Thanks for giving us the time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. And are you guys going to any Rams games this year?
Not in person.
No.
I think they have a fairly strict attendance policy, the amount of people that they allow into the building. And I think it ain't us. And then Jordan gets to leave and come back. And then maybe
Rich Hammond.
Jordan can bring Rich.
Lindsay Theory.
Yeah. And then that's
okay.
A lot of people have to be unavailable before Andy and I get that credential. So
a lot of people. And I mean, the Rams PR department, they're fantastic.
They're wonderful.
They've been great to work with. Exactly. We're not taking it personally. They're terrific. Tomorrow, Farley Elliott, food writer and editor at Eater LA. We're going to talk a bunch of food with him and also some baseball. He's a big Dodger guy. So we're going to relive everything that happened over the past week when the Dodgers won the World Series. So that should be a lot of fun. Get your food questions ready. When we've had different food guys on before, y'all have seemed to enjoy it. So we're doing that again.
Yeah. Monday, Bruce Feldman, no show on Tuesday because the election, and I just can't handle that. And then Wednesday, back to basketball with Anthony Slater. So we'll see everyone tomorrow night. Thanks again to Ted Nguyen. Have a good night.
Dank u, Nederland.
See you guys later.